I think I've seen like Bill Parcells, other people, Bill Belichick over the years talk about week one's great and all, but the most important week is week two. Because if you win week one, you've got a chance to start off 2-0. And the odds of making the playoffs after starting 2-0 are pretty high. Versus if you lose week one and then you lose week two, now you're 0-2, and you've got a very uphill battle, and your odds of making the playoffs drastically go down. Um, but if you lose week one and then you win week two, you're back to 1-1. You feel pretty good, right? So both the Bears and the Lions coming to this Sunday afternoon matchup, with that kind of dilemma there. Both of them starting 0-1. Neither one of them wanting to risk having to go and start this season 0-2. And we start with the Bears first because they were 0-1 last week after that fine primetime display of Bears football, which you know that they love to do. Which is really crazy considering heading into the fourth quarter, the Bears were up 17-6. So it didn't start out that bad. It certainly slowed down in a hurry, but, you got a defensive touchdown. That, of course, is Bears football. But you're up by 11 heading into the fourth quarter. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this should be a runaway win, and instead it's not. And you can hear some excuses about how they had a few injuries and there were a couple of questionable calls, but at the end of the day, there's no fucking excuse. That's a game that's winnable. You're at home, opening the season, new head coach against a quarterback making his first start. They're missing their all-world left tackle. They're missing their high-end wide receiver too. They're missing their leader in the secondary at safety in Harrison Smith. You got to win that game. And they fell apart. They folded like a house of cards in the fourth quarter. That just can't help it. And everybody did. Offense, defense, special teams, like they all did. Just not a, it was a tough scene, needless to say. The Bears really badly need to win this game to avoid that 0-2 start, especially in the NFC North. It's one thing to start off 0-2, but it's another thing to start off 0-2 and have that come at the expense of losing 2 games in your division. Not a great place to be at all. And it's a real chance here for Ben Johnson to get a little bit of redemption for himself after the way it turned out in week one, but also obviously chance for him to go back to Detroit, his old stomping grounds the past few years, and get some revenge and make a statement and have like a marquee coaching performance. Like, the opportunity's there. He's got to go and take the most of it. And I think for the Lions, I think most folks kind of looked at this team and expected it to take a little bit of a step back this year, especially when you factor in that they lost Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears, Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, to the New York Jets. But that was more in a step back what we saw in week one. Like, it looked like the Packers were in a whole different league. It was rough for the Lions on both sides of the ball. They struggled to run effectively at all, struggled to protect Jared Goff. Their defense gave up 27 points to the Packers offense, and it wasn't exactly like the Packers offense was super humming, but they were effective when they needed to be. Just a really, really bad performance for them. And it's a big chance here for the Detroit Lions coming back home to say, like, hey, we got a chance to get it right. We get the taste of week one out of our mouths, and they really, really badly need to avoid that 0-2 start, very similar to the Chicago Bears. Now, as we look at the injury report heading into this matchup, both teams are pretty well positioned here overall. For the Lions, Taylor Decker and Kirby Joseph are listed as questionable, but expecting both of them to play. Meanwhile, for the Bears, Grady Jarrett's questionable, although looking at his performance in week one, doesn't really matter if he plays or not. It looks like the Bears, good news, right? They're poised to get back Jalen Johnson and TJ Edwards and Roschon Johnson, so get somebody in that running back group other than DeAndre Swift, who ultimately is not going to get any carries. And then Jalen, he's the best player on that defense. He certainly adds something to that secondary. And getting TJ Edwards back will be an upgrade over Noah Sewell starting in week one for sure. But you've got Kyler Glass-Gordon's going to miss his second straight start to start the season. And, it's a good player, certainly, but as seems so often the case, he's just missing games because of this, that, or the other thing gets old after a little while. The odds for this one, I'm a little surprised. I saw this line earlier and I said, that feels a little heavy. The Lions are 6.5-point favorites and the over-under on this one's 46.5. Like, maybe you're anticipating a bounce-back game for Detroit. But as bad as the Bears looked in week one in prime time, and maybe that's part of the bias here, more people saw the Bears' bad performance in week one, the Lions were really bad throughout the game. The Bears at least started off well, and then they folded. Detroit basically folded from the fucking beginning. And they're 6.5-point favorites. That's wild work to me, man. I'm just saying. When you look at the keys to victory here for the Bears, they have to find a running game somewhere, somehow, that isn't just Caleb Williams scrambling out of the pocket. If Swift doesn't perform well against his former team, then it's got to be Roschon, it's got to be Monangai. You've got to find other guys to take some carries and see what the fuck you've got here. Because if you figure out that none of them can produce, then you need to explore going out and getting a running back in the trade market. You have to sooner rather than later. Offensively in the passing game, to me, you got to get more touches for Colston Loveland and Luther Burden III. Like, you took Colston Loveland in the top 10. You didn't do that to deploy him primarily as a run blocker and then utilize him some as a pass protector. That's dumb. You took him high because you believe that he brings something to your offense. So if that's the case, then find that something he brings to your offense and fucking go after it. Same thing with Luther Burden III. He's an explosive player. You need some explosive element in your offense. Find ways to manufacture touches for him. Get the ball in his fucking hands. It's not that hard. It really isn't. And then here's another one. I won't say it's easy, but it is definitely critical. Caleb's just got to be more accurate. At some point in time, the excuses and all the other bullshit's got to kick rocks. He's just got to be able to hit the target more consistently at all three levels. Short, intermediate, and deep. Because until he's better in that respect when it matters, like, you're going to be questioning whether or not he's the guy, and the Bears offense is going to be stuck in the mud, and it's just that simple. But it's not just all in the offense, right? You certainly look into the offense, but the defensive front needs to win more and generate some pressure on Goff. And when you look at their coverage units, they've got to find a way to be sound there. You know, if they give up catches, fine, but you can't allow broken tackles. You can't allow a lot of yards after the catch. Meanwhile, for the Lions, contain Caleb Williams in the pocket and make him beat you from there. I know sometimes you'll hear, like, get a great pass rush and get after him and get him uncomfortable and everything else. And that sounds great in theory, but it's almost like in some ways you want to deploy the Rex Grossman defense against Caleb Williams right now, which is the best defense is just stand straight up and put your hands in the pocket, hands up, to try and bat the ball down and stay where you are. Make him uncomfortable. Caleb wants to move around. Caleb wants to improvise. He wants to kind of go with the flow. So if you force him every time to execute within structure or consistently to execute within structure, he's going to have problems. He's going to be uncomfortable. They got to find a way to do that. They also need to get Jahmyr Gibbs involved early and often, both as a runner and receiver. Like, he's their dog on that offense. They need to get him off here. And their other dog is Amon-Ra St. Brown. No excuse for them in this game to not get him 10-plus targets. Move him around in the slot. There's no Kyler Gordon. Like, make the Bears figure out how to fucking cover him is what I'm saying. Heavy dose of Jahmyr Gibbs. Heavy dose of Amon-Ra St. Brown. When you lose your first game like this and you played that poorly, in part it could be because you didn't get your top guys the ball enough. You need to remedy that in week 2. As far as predictions for this matchup, this could go any number of ways. It really could. It could be that week 1 was just a rough performance for the Lions and they're going to get home, they're going to be in front of their home crowd, and they're going to be excited, and they're going to be motivated, and they'll play better. It could also be that what we saw in week 1 out of them is more of a reflection of what we could expect from them this season, or at least the notion that they're going to start off a little bit slower. Similar conversation for the Bears, right? Like, is it just the same old shit as last year? It doesn't matter if some of the faces have changed, the performance in the place, ultimately they stay the same. But I think when I look at the Bears, I saw a little bit of a potential, at least in the first half of that performance Monday night, to say, like, there can be more there. We know there can be more there with the Lions, but we didn't really see much of anything super positive for them. In fact, the one touchdown they scored was with like a minute to go in the fourth quarter in absolute garbage time. So I might shock some people here, and I hope this isn't the Jeff jinx, and I hope we're not about to see another Bears football performance on Sunday afternoon, but I'm going to take the Bears in an upset to win here. Give me Chicago 23-21. Let's get nuts and see what happens when Detroit starts off 0-2.